Of the things that Brian and I investigated, we believe that two that demonstrate ways in which the Civil War brought about a transformation in American life comes down to the military technology that was created and photography. So for military technologies, many new technologies were introduced in the Civil War on land, sea, and transportation. On land, the rifle was introduced, providing soldiers with a more accurate and better range gun compared to the muskets used in the beginning of the war. The Gatling gun, which is essentially the first ever machine gun, was also used sparingly, although not often since it used too much ammunition. On the sea, the Confederacy introduced torpedoes, and although they didn't have much of an impact as well as a submarine, the Hunley in February of 1864 approached and attached a naval mine to the USS Housatonic, which was a Union ship. When the mine exploded, the USS Housatonic was the first ship to be sunk by a submarine. Minutes later, the Hunley would also sink. For transportation, the railroad was really important in the war effort for keeping the troops supplied. It greatly favored the Union since most of the railroad was built in the North, but the Confederacy used what railroad they had to their advantage, which can also be seen in the First Battle of Manassas and the Confederacy's taking of Harper's Ferry. And as to go on to photography, photos of the war helped change what people would expect from war. In the beginning, people saw this war as an event that would only take place for like a couple of weeks, and some families would even sit on buildings or have picnics and watch the fighting down below. The war was seen more as like a spectacle, like people would spectate and watch it at first. People were also used to seeing paintings of previous war, which was kind of like a sight of beauty. However, when photographs started to come out, it really showed the raw and cruel reality of it. Photographs caught bodies laying across the battlefield, destroyed cities and villages, and also starving prisoners of war. In addition, most photographers weren't even taken during battle. Rather, more pictures were taken outside of battle, which would show the camp life, the daily routines, and also like the preparation for war. Of the things that we investigated, we believe that two that demonstrate a continuation of traditional attitudes or practices in America, despite the war, comes from primarily military strategies and also the treatment of African Americans. For military strategies, one similar strategy that was used by the Confederacy, which was used in the Revolutionary War, the War of Attrition, the Confederates wanted to win their war by not losing and waiting for the Union to get tired enough of the war to end it, similar to what the colonists did in the Revolutionary War. However, this plan would not work, as many Southerners would rather attack the North and go on the offensive rather than wait for them to be attacked and go on the defense. For slavery, basically, once they were freed, African Americans were still being oppressed. They tried to acquire land of their own and work it with their reunited families. The government promised the 40 acres and a mule, which raised hopes it went unfulfilled. After 10 years after emancipation, barely 5% of former slaves in Louisiana and other Confederate states owned their land. And those who did couldn't even develop it because they didn't have the credit or the income to do that. And one of the things that we investigated that demonstrate sacrifice, courage and bravery, ingenuity and patriotism definitely come from the Libby prison escape and the Anaconda Plan. For the Libby prison escape, over 100 Union soldiers who were prisoners of war escaped from captivity. It was one of the most successful prison breaks of the American Civil War. It was led by Colonel Thomas E. Rose of the 77th, which was Pennsylvania Infantry. Basically what the prisoners did was they tunneled in a rat-infested zone in which the Confederates actually didn't like going to, and they basically dug through the tunnel and it came out from a lot beside a warehouse, and they were just able to walk from the warehouse and get out without any harm or any suspicion. It was perfect. It was planned out. It really shows patriotism on wanting to be free, and it also shows courage and bravery. I mean, imagine escaping from a prison in a zone so badly infested with rats that the Confederates didn't even like to go over there. And another one that shows a lot of these traits is the Anaconda Plan. The original Union strategy, which was formed by Winfield Scott, basically he believed that he could seize the Mississippi River from Ontario, Illinois to the Gulf, which would then split the Confederacy into two. Then he would wait for Southern Union sympathizers to turn in Confederate generals and get them to surrender. It was thought to basically squeeze the South out to death, like to wean them out, to take the South out one by one, eventually leaving no one left. And some of the other passive parts of Scott's plan made it not go into effect, but it really shows these traits in ingenuity, especially ingenuity, and patriotism, courage and bravery, obviously, as well.